time, desegregation was as inevitable, as inescapable as any prophecy God might have whispered to wise men about upheavals on the horizon. I write this opinion realizing it is the perspective of a white Southerner, and I know that the end of World War II did not bring an end to bigotry. In some cases, that bigotry was escalated, made uglier and more insulting than indignities that blacks had suffered before the war. I realize also that the majority of white Southerners returning from World War II, given the influence of Logan's Law, reacted passively to the changes invading their environment. Yet that reaction eventually became an important contribution to desegregation. When push came to shove in the civil rights movement, they remained passive, which greatly weakened the assumed presence of a united white Southern front. Such a front simply did not exist. But there were some white people who stepped across the line, thumbed their noses at Logan's Law. World War II was a passionate memory for them, and in their homes, a quiet, private lesson was being taught in the aftershock of a war ignited by tyrants hell-bent on destroying races of people as well as conquering land. Don't put anyone down. Anyone. I have written this book because that period of time has always fascinated me, and because I am of that generation of Southerners born to segregation and to Logan's Law, one who became a passive member of a passive transition period, and one who has lived his adulthood balanced on the still shaky high wire hanging between then and now. I write of then, hoping to better understand now. Prologue. Conjure Woman walked in a steady step, her white wrap dress and white head turban glowing under the moon. She walked down the middle of the road, and the drivers of the cars that came upon her suddenly out of the darkness steered to avoid her, knowing who she was. The drivers of the cars slowed to a stop and looked back down the road and whispered in awe of seeing her. "Conjure Woman! Conjure Woman! Conjure Woman!" At the side-by-side shanty houses along the road where Conjure Woman walked, dogs whimpered and slithered into hiding, and the people who lived in those houses peeked from behind ratty curtains at the large, white-shrouded figure in the middle of the road, and they muttered to one another in startled voices, "Conjure Woman's walking!" They crept outside and whispered across their yards to one another, saying, Look yonder, Conjure Woman's coming down the road." Hootie Veal came out of his tar-paper shanty, followed by 3 of his 8 children. Hootie and his children were thought to be addle-brained, the way they behaved. Hootie skittered up to Conjure Woman, mocking her step, playing the fool. His children laughed and played the fool with him. "Where are you going?" Hootie bellowed. Conjure Woman did not answer. Her step did not change. Hootie ran in a circle around her, lifting his knees high, swinging his arms low. His children laughed and leapt in the air and beat their hands together. "Where you going off to?" Hootie said again, shoving his face close to Conjure Woman's. "Be out of my way," Conjure Woman told him. Her voice was like the blade of a cold wind. Hootie threw his head back and howled a dog howl. His children howled also and giggled. Conjure Woman did not stop walking. She raised her hand and pointed her finger at Hootie, and Hootie's legs began to wobble, wobbling like Charlie Chaplin's before a fall, and then Hootie crumpled to the ground as though his bones had been jerked from his legs. His children laughed at the comedy and began circling Hootie, still dog-howling. Hootie rolled on the ground, slapping at the air with his hands. His tongue hung from his mouth in a wad of flesh. Conjure Woman did not look back. "God Almighty," whispered the people who saw Hootie fall as they watched from the windows of their homes and from their cars. "Damn fool," they said of Hootie. "You don't go messing with Conjure Woman when she's out walking at night." The drivers of the cars and the people behind the curtains could not see Conjure Woman's face. Her face was cold dark, darker than the night, and against the night it was invisible. But they all knew the face they could not see, huge and round, a flat nose, eyes that were fire-hot in temper and shiver-cold in disdain, eyes that were like the dreams of demons. When Conjure Woman walked at night, something was about to happen. Everyone knew that. Everyone. The stories of Conjure Woman were too many and too